Before we dive in, a quick like and subscribe would mean the world to us. The memory of her face, frozen in disbelief as I pushed the plain manila envelope over the polished surface of the downtown bistro bar, is etched forever in my mind. Her practiced smile faltered, her perfectly sculpted lips twitching, perhaps formulating another smooth deception, but the words on the documents were undeniable. The separation was conclusive. My signature sealed it. All that remained was hers. She didn't reach for the pen. She just stared, her eyes wide, like a predator suddenly caught in a snare. That precise moment marked the true end, the instant I ceased to be her partner. There was a time, not so long ago, when she truly was my entire world. I encountered her during my formative years, relentlessly chasing my professional dreams, fueled by an endless supply of espresso and unwavering ambition. She radiated an infectious energy, vibrant, joyous, endlessly inquisitive, utterly captivating. She saw potential in me even when I had yet to achieve anything noteworthy. Our union was swift, perhaps impulsively so. I genuinely believed that fidelity was an inherent part of our sacred vows. For what felt like an eternity, she projected an image of unwavering dedication, a second nature. It was only much later that I observed the subtle erosion of that facade. The subtle change began imperceptibly. Her professional travel became increasingly frequent. Initially, I was a staunch supporter, eager for her advancement and personal growth. Before we begin, please hit the like button and subscribe for more stories like this. A subtle chill, imperceptible at first, began to pervade our shared existence, replacing the warmth that once defined us. It manifested in the hushed phone calls Alara would take in another room, the exotic fragrance clinging to her, unfamiliar to me. Her embraces became devoid of feeling, mere gestures, mechanical and hollow, upon her return. The undeniable proof, the final crushing blow, arrived in a message I was never meant to witness. A brief, illicit text, detailing a rendezvous, same hotel, our usual suite, counting the moments. There was no outburst, no primal scream of anguish or fury. Instead, I simply fixated on the glowing screen. The words imprinted themselves upon my soul, etching a permanent scar, yet a peculiar, chilling calm descended. A slow, deliberate smile surfaced, betraying a newfound resolve. Alara believed herself cunning. She utterly failed to comprehend the formidable adversary she had awakened, forged in the fires of betrayal. My subsequent actions were not driven by raw emotion, for I understood it as a profound vulnerability. I meticulously stripped away sentiment, adopting the precise, unfeeling logic of a master builder orchestrating a controlled demolition. Phase 1. Establish a secure foundation. I discreetly began transferring our joint assets. Every shared investment, every liquid fund, was meticulously moved into a trust under my exclusive command, silent and swift. By the time Alara might register the shift, she would discover an empty battlefield, devoid of any resources to contest. Phase 2. Amass crucial intelligence. I initiated surveillance, trailing her discreetly, confirming every suspicion. I learned the identity of the man, Marcus, his profession, his personal history, and most importantly, his points of weakness. Before we begin, please hit the like button and subscribe for more stories. Your support means the world to us. He, Victor Thorne, was a titan in his industry, a public figure with an impeccable facade masking a labyrinth of corruption and personal indiscretions. My objective was clear: to systematically collect every shred of incriminating evidence, building an unassailable dossier robust enough to guarantee his absolute downfall. This relentless pursuit of truth formed the second, pivotal step in my meticulously orchestrated vengeance. The third, and most critical, element was flawless timing, a perfectly calculated strike. Eleanor's routine business trips were an accepted part of our married life, an established rhythm she believed I would never dare to question. That ingrained sense of entitlement, her profound underestimation of my perception, transformed itself into my most formidable weapon against them both. The day of reckoning, the true execution of my design, arrived with a chilling precision I had long anticipated. I secured my arrival at the opulent Peninsula Hotel a full 24 hours ahead of her, reserving a discreet suite directly across the corridor from hers. From my shadowed vantage point, I observed, I waited, every flicker of light, every hushed movement, meticulously logged. When she finally emerged from the elevator, Victor at her side, their hands brushing with an undeniable, practiced familiarity, I felt no consuming fire of jealousy. Instead, a profound, almost surgical clarity washed over me, affirming every suspicion and steeling my resolve beyond measure. Each shared glance, every soft, illicit laugh, every tender touch, every fragment of their profound betrayal, was unsparingly documented by my camera. With the irrefutable evidence secured, the final, decisive blow was ready to be delivered. I located her in the hotel's dimly lit lounge, a solitary silhouette against the evening glow, utterly unaware of the impending collapse of her world. The divorce papers lay neatly folded on the lacquered table between us, a stark, undeniable proclamation of finality. My voice remained eerily calm, my gaze unwavering, utterly devoid of the storm of emotions that once ravaged me. Eleanor's initial shock quickly dissolved into a desperate stammer, a frantic plea for explanations, for a chance to somehow mend the irreparable. But the overwhelming weight of the photographic proof, the damning messages, rendered any attempt at justification entirely meaningless, utterly futile. My words were precise, unyielding. Our marriage is irrevocably finished. Your choice is to sign these documents, or to lose absolutely everything you hold dear. Before we begin, please hit the like button and subscribe for more stories like this. The very next morning, a discreet package arrived at the corporate headquarters of Luminous Innovations, Dominic's company. It contained a meticulously compiled dossier, undeniable proof of financial irregularities, compromising images, and anonymous, yet devastating, witness accounts. By midday, word spread like wildfire through their corporate halls. Dominic was officially suspended, his career now hanging by a precarious thread. The week ended with his professional life in utter ruin, a swift and precise demolition of everything he had meticulously built. There was no triumphant shout from my end, no moment of gloating, no satisfaction in any public display. I simply dissolved into the background, a phantom presence disappearing without a trace, leaving Eleanor alone amidst the wreckage of her own choices. 5 years of profound silence followed, a period where I meticulously rebuilt my existence brick by quiet brick, far from her reach. New phone numbers, distant cities, every trace of my old life systematically erased, I became a ghost, utterly beyond her grasp. The taste of this newfound freedom, I genuinely believed, was far more satisfying than any fleeting satisfaction revenge could ever offer. Or so my mind convinced me, until the day an unexpected piece of news arrived, shattering the calm surface of my solitude. Over a casual coffee, a former colleague, completely unaware of the chasm that once existed between us, innocently brought up Eleanor's name. "You've heard about her, haven't you?" he asked, his voice laced with a subtle concern. "The accident." I leaned closer, a strange, detached curiosity compelling me to absorb every detail of her unforeseen fate. Eleanor had been involved in a horrific car crash, surviving the impact but emerging far from whole, a mere shadow of her former self. She had lost her mobility, her once prestigious career, and with it, the impeccably polished facade she had always presented to the world. Dominic, the man for whom she had shattered our vows, had long vanished from the scene, another fleeting casualty in the relentless pursuit of ambition. This unexpected revelation hung in the air, weighty and profound, inviting a deeper, more personal introspection. For a fleeting moment, an unsettling void filled me. I registered no immediate emotion, neither triumph nor sorrow. Then, with stunning clarity, the unvarnished, undeniable truth settled within me, profoundly altering my entire perspective on what had transpired. I hadn't orchestrated her destruction, Eleanor had, in fact, meticulously engineered her own downfall, and I had simply, wisely, stepped out of her path. The universe, it seemed, had its own intricate and unforgiving ways of delivering justice, far beyond any retribution I could have engineered. Before we dive in, please hit the like button and subscribe, it truly helps the channel. A profound realization settled within me recently. I no longer felt any compulsion to actively inflict punishment upon Sophia. Life, in its relentless march, had already taken up the mantle, performing the grim task far more comprehensively and poetically than my own hands ever could. The vibrant woman who once commanded attention, who chased fleeting social prestige and lived for the applause of a shallow world, now existed in quiet, stark contrast. Her days were confined to a cramped, unassuming apartment, where a hired nurse administered to her basic needs, a stark symbol of her utter descent. No new marriage had emerged from the wreckage of our past, no grand rebuilding effort had been launched. She hadn't merely fallen, she had simply, irrevocably, dissolved into the silent currents of anonymity, utterly forgotten by the very society she so desperately yearned for. For years, a persistent fantasy haunted me, the day I would finally face her again, standing tall and triumphant, allowing her to witness, firsthand, the monumental life she had so carelessly forfeited. But the current image, Sophia, broken, diminished, a mere shadow of her former self, stripped of all her former glory, extinguished that desire entirely. In that moment of stark clarity, I truly understood the depth of her undoing. The satisfaction of my carefully orchestrated revenge, I now recognized, had actually reached its chilling zenith long before the tragic accident that sealed her fate. My weapon was not a physical blow, but the quiet, decisive act of presenting those divorce papers. And the 5 years of absolute, unbroken silence that followed? That was my most potent declaration, my final, wordless confession to the world and to myself. Should anyone dare to anticipate a flicker of guilt, a fleeting pang of remorse, within my being, they are destined for profound and utter disappointment. I assure you, such emotions are entirely absent. Because betrayal, particularly of the callous and calculated kind she perpetrated, is a vile act that deserves not even the slightest shred of mercy. Let me be unequivocally clear, I never, by any direct action, physically propelled her towards the precipice of ruin. My involvement was far more subtle, far more intelligent. I merely stepped aside, deliberately clearing the path, allowing her own reckless choices and inherent flaws to propel her, unhindered and at full speed, towards her own inevitable, self-made abyss. Now, 5 full years later, the distant, echoing reverberation of her spectacular and comprehensive downfall still resonates deeply within my soul. It is a sound that, I confess, provides a profound and utterly unyielding sense of vindication and satisfaction. For this, above all else, is the undeniable, unvarnished truth: I was never the true architect of her destruction. She, with every conscious choice, with every deceptive whisper, meticulously engineered her own undoing. My singular contribution was merely being shrewd enough, wise enough, to intelligently and swiftly remove myself from her destructive trajectory, watching from a safe, detached distance as she sealed her own fate.